Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started. Welcome to episode 14. In honor of International Women's Day this week, why don't we chat about those so-called women's wines? Did you hear those air quotes? Before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to Kim Biddell of Dawson Creek, BC, who emailed me about episode 7 with New York Times bestselling author Bianca Bosker. If you missed that episode, go back and take a listen, as she's hilarious and smart as all get out. So Kim says, quote, "Natalie, I must tell you that I so enjoyed your podcast with Bianca Bosker. The next day, I went out and bought a German Riesling, and I was blown away. I have avoided Riesling because I don't like sweet wine. I bought a very dry Riesling, and I'm in love. Thank you. Keep up the good work." End quote. Well, Kim, I am thrilled that this episode brought you back to Riesling. It's such a fabulous wine, and as you say, it doesn't have to be sweet. If you review this podcast and want me to mention your website or social media handle, please include that in your review. I love to give a shout out to those who are kind enough to review my podcast, whether it's on social, via email, or posting a review on Apple Podcasts. So if you review this podcast and want me to mention your website or social media handle, please include that in your review along with your name. I want to celebrate you and let others know how to connect with you online. As you know by now, I love tasting and writing about wine with my tongue in cheek. So when it comes to wines aimed at women, I have to throw up my hands and admit that I just can't resist a pink label or a cuddly squirrel. I guess I'm just at the mercy of those intrepid marketing teams. It's like they read my mind after I've been drinking too much of Two Hands Gnarly Dude Shiraz. Girls just want to have fun, right? Maybe, but grown-up women need a drink. A flurry of chick wines are on the liquor store shelves, including Mad Housewife, Mommy's Time Out, Happy Bee, and Working Girl. The best label in the Working Girl lineup, in my opinion, is Handyman Red, presumably for those desperate housewife afternoon tumbles with the plumber. But do these wines taste good, or are they simply marketing gimmicks? I gave 3 of them a stern look and taste, starting with Girls' Night Out Riesling from Ontario. This is a light, tasty white with a touch of sweetness and notes of peach and pear. This is one of the most successful brand launches from the southwestern Ontario winery, Colio Estates. It makes a lovely aperitif while watching the movie Eat, Pray, Love. Pair with roast chicken or white-fleshed fish. It's only about $13 and I gave it a score of 85 points out of 100. Next up, Little Black Dress Merlot from California. Okay, so what's up with the red shoes and white soles on the label? That is so 2018. However, this wine offers juicy cherry and blackberry aromas. It's medium-bodied for nice girls, but also has a knock-it-back tastiness for the naughty ones. Drink it with veal, pork tenderloin, or while practicing your presentation for the hostile corporate merger. It's $15 and I gave it a score of 87. Cupcake Red Velvet from California. Try to move past the reference to girly frosting cake. This blend of Zinfandel, Merlot, and Cabernet offers enticing aromas of dark berries, cassis, and black plums. A juicy steak, hamburger, or prime rib are all great matches. But wait, Aren't those rather macho meals? Manly, yes, but I like them too. It's $15 and I gave it an 87. You'll find links to all of these wines in the show notes at nataliemclean.com/14. So let's dig a little deeper here. Perhaps the problem started with Bacchus and Dionysus, the ancient Roman and Greek gods of wine, both men. Or maybe it was the medieval European myth that women could turn wine to vinegar. Possibly it's the modern misconception that women don't like to get their hands dirty. But as my finance professor at Western used to prompt us, what does the data say? Well, women buy 80% of wine and consume 61% of it, according to the New York Times and several studies. That's because women purchase most household goods, still, from shreddies to SUVs, and are the social planners, whether it's a dinner party or casual get-together with friends. As a woman who writes about wine, it doesn't surprise me, given that wine is the drink of conversation, to be savored and enjoyed with friends over dinner, rather than knocked back as shots in a bar. Women are more interested in pairing food and wine, and are considered to be better tasters. We are the majority of super tasters in the population, including yours truly. Yes, I had my taste buds counted by the California-based Tim Hanai, a specialist in sensory analysis. Women are more adventurous and experimental when it comes to wine, according to several studies, more willing to try new brands, and more apt to order by the glass in a restaurant. A Globe and Mail report says that women have been driving wine sales up over the past decade in Canada. The article says the Canadians are drinking 12% more wine than they did a decade ago, according to Statistics Canada, and industry watchers are attributing a significant portion of the increase to women. The rise in consumption is thought to be the result of several factors: a broader product assortment that tends to attract women, successful marketing strategies targeting both sexes, and boomers who are willing to experiment with more sophisticated ways to entertain. Meanwhile, beer sales in Canada have been consistent to flat, and StatsCan says that it is men who tend to drink that beverage. Wine sales, however, have tripled in some parts of the country. Alan Middleton, a marketing expert at York University, largely attributes this boom to women. He says that as retailers expand marketing campaigns for wine and mixed drinks, over the past decade, women have consumed more of those beverages as alternatives to filling harsher-tasting beers and brown liquors. Women buy wine to please guests. Men buy to impress them. Women are more about sharing wine. Men are more into cellaring, otherwise known as hoarding. Women tend to ask for recommendations and guidance more so than men who tend to act as though they already know about wine. When we're lost on vacation, who's going to ask for driving directions? I get several hundred emails every day from my newsletter subscribers. There are about 268,000 of them. Many of these emails are from women who are asking about how to pair wine with food or serve it, like glassware, temperature, etc. According to a British study, 22% of men embellish their expertise on wine to impress others. As Hugh Johnson, editor of the Wine Atlas and several other reference books, observed, quote, "Wine is like sex, in that few men will admit not knowing all about it," end quote. So are men from Bordeaux and women from Burgundy? Maybe, but of course these are generalized findings from various studies, and there are always exceptions. However, I do find that men approach wine more analytically and women more holistically, based on the questions and comments that I get on social media as well. Men are far more focused on trophy or badge wines, and women on the stories behind more mid-market wines. Of course, all sorts of products are marketed to women differently from the way they're marketed to men, from computers to clothing. Marketing is also based on race, ethnicity, age, and geography. And with more than 1 million wine producers worldwide who produce anywhere from 5 to 20 different wines that change every year, I understand a winery's need to stand out on a crowded liquor store shelf. However, I am skeptical of marketing-driven wines. Authentic wine has its roots in the ground, not in a focus group. Do I find the high heels and little black dresses insulting or dumbing down women's knowledge of wine? No, I find many of them sad and pathetic in an unimaginative way. But I have to remember that I've spent more than 20 years reading and writing about wine, and that for someone who's new to wine, it can be extremely intimidating. So if these labels help women or men try wine and explore other wines as a result, then that is a good thing. The saving grace is that the first sale of any wine is often based on the label, but the second sale is always made based on what's inside. So perhaps it's time for Bacchus and Dionysus to make room at the table and in the cellar for a colleague, Varunani, the Indian goddess of wine. I raise my glass to her and to women and men who love wine and enjoy it together. How about you? How much are you influenced by a wine's label? Are there any girly girl or pool boy wines you've tried and enjoyed lately? Share that with me, please. You can tag me on Twitter or Facebook at Natalie McLean, or on Instagram, I'm at Natalie McLean Wine, or use the hashtag Unreserved Wine Talk. You'll find the links to the wines I've mentioned in the show notes, along with other tips and resources at nataliemclean.com/14. Next week, we'll chat with sommelier Leslie Brown, who shares her best tips on how to choose wine from a restaurant list and which questions you should ask the sommelier. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot of it and text or email it to one friend this week. I can't wait to share more personal wine stories with you. Thank you for taking time to listen to this one. I hope something great is in your glass this week. You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So subscribe for free now at nataliemclean.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.